What's up, guys? My name is Fari, and I build systems that remove bottlenecks within businesses. And I've been documenting my builds since the 1st of June 2025, going all the way up to the 1st of June 2026. And in today's video, we're going to be going through why just doing things ultimately, allows for things to fall into place. And this is one of the things that, has happened to me recently where I've just realized all of the things that I've done that have led me to this point in time have all happened, for a reason. If I were to look back and say what was the one thing that allowed me to, take the parts or make the decisions that ultimately got me to, for example, making these daily videos, it all just comes down to, curiosity and solely understanding that being curious and solely just doing things, everything somewhat falls into place, and you always don't have to know it in the moment of how everything's going to work out. But if you have conviction and you truly believe that this is going to work out, you only, it's only a matter of time before, everything starts making sense. When I look back on my journey and I remember the times where, I was, selling sweets, and I was, speaking to people, and I was, the guy that most people knew. I never really understood, certain things at that time because I was still so young, but I still did a bunch of things that, now have ultimately allowed me to look back and realize that by doing those things, it ultimately got me here and it taught me so much, so many things that ultimately helped me along my journey as well. And this is, from, even starting YouTube. When I was, young and wanted to just do things and I was curious, I literally started a YouTube channel. And from starting that YouTube channel, that ultimately allowed me to somewhat get comfortable in front of the camera and make the videos that are on my channel, the very early videos that are still on my channel today. And through that, just having that, curiosity has also, allowed me to realize that there's so much leverage, or there's so many things that you can just try and fail, but ultimately by doing it, you know that things are ultimately going to fall into place whether you realize it in the moment or not. And I see this, from what I was saying just now, like, when I was back, being young and I was selling sweets and people used to know me for what I was doing at the time, I never really truly understood it. And now looking back on it today, it basically comes back to having a pleasing personality. And this is something from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, if I'm not mistaken, where it talks about, having a pleasing personality, because having that personality also just allows you to connect with people a lot more. And I think through that, looking at the time, I never really truly understood it. And I just did things because I was like, hey, I'm just going to do things and I'm just going to, do it because I enjoy it. And simply just by doing that, it's ultimately led me to asking more and more questions that allowed me to then try different things like making music. For all those that don't know, I, from YouTube to start to making music, I spent quite a lot of time, understanding, how to mix songs and how to make songs and what goes into beats and different things like that. And that was me, like the person that was always just so curious, and I didn't always know how everything would fit or how the pieces would fit in that moment in time. But now looking back, I realized that the most important thing is just doing, and then understanding that things will ultimately fall into place. Because if you look at it, from, the kid that used to do YouTube videos and never really, understood what was going on, but was ultimately just making videos, and along the way, I ultimately figured it out. It ultimately got me to this point where I then transitioned after, stopping music for a little bit. I then transitioned into making, the tech videos. And through those tech videos, I understood, a powerful tool that, hey, YouTube is the most to ultimately build stuff, and I enjoy it as well. And just only understanding that, there's certain things in terms of communicating and also speaking as well has, drastically improved as a result of it. And it's so many intangible things that ultimately, have formed because of it. And just by doing, I think the people that win ultimately just do things even if they don't understand how it's going to play into the future, or the lessons aren't, or not necessarily the lessons, but like the value or how it's going to instantly get to you a tangible result in the moment may not always be visible, but it only comes through action. It only comes from doing things. Then you're able to then recognize patterns and learn a lot more, because you're getting more skin in the game and reps as well, that ultimately allow you to become better in what you're doing. But that only comes as a result of just doing the thing, and just waking up each and every single day and doing the thing and learning as well. Because it's one thing to do the thing, but it's another to also learn from your mistakes and learn how you ultimately can improve as well. And I think this is one of the things that has helped me a lot, especially with these daily videos, and also with the builds in terms of thinking and just adding to the execution there, in terms of fully just understanding that each and every single day is a day to ultimately refine and reshape the brick or the foundation into how it's going to be into the future. And just staying present in the moment and just solely just understanding that right now is the time that I can control my inputs in some way. I may not necessarily be able to control the outputs, but I definitely can control the inputs. And understanding that it's the micro things that you do on a day to day that ultimately allows you to then understand and recognize the patterns of what you're doing, and also how to improve as well. But it just comes from doing, and that is where at least I found a lot of value in just doing the thing that needs to get done, and doing it to the max, and making sure that each and every single part is done effectively as well. Because it's just one thing to do things subpar, and if you do things subpar, you will get subpar results. But if you want to do things at an extremely high level, you ultimately need to also play to that level. And understanding that by just doing, and ultimately you don't always have to be perfect in the moment. You learn as much as you possibly can, make failures, and through those failures or those temporary defeats, you're then able to solely just get better and refine your process. And through that refinement process, you ultimately build those reps. But that doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes for me personally, I have to be truthfully honest, I do get impatient sometimes. But then I ground myself in understanding that this is a marathon and not a sprint, and the things that I learned today will ultimately fuel the next level of things that I will be building into the future. And it all starts from some point. You always don't have to be the grandmaster straight away. You also have to just get in the weeds and just get into the dirty, get your hands dirty, as they say. And through that, you ultimately are then able to learn and get those patterns and understand those patterns that ultimately allow you to refine your process. And now, with these daily videos, one of the things that has improved a lot, is just executing and saying, hey, like if I feel like recording a video, I'm just gonna whip out my camera and I'm literally just gonna record. I'm not gonna spend too much time procrastinating, or I want to shorten the time in terms of from ideation to execution. How do I then shorten the time? And yes, it doesn't always have to be perfect, but then you iterate on that as you go along. And just adding towards that execution there, I know has been something that for me personally has added a lot of tremendous amounts of value. And I know it's going to continue to do so into the future, but it's only just from doing that ultimately allows you to then get to the next level. But you have to start from somewhere, and I found most joy from just doing things and then figuring it out along the way. You don't always have to have all the answers, but as long as you just do it, you will find the answers as you go along. And yeah, I guess that is what was on my mind, and I just want to execute a lot more in terms of the upcoming videos. Just get back into full operator mode, and just make sure that we're getting closer to the grand vision, and also building what we're building, and then sharing that as well as time goes on. And yeah, if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to check out my newsletter. X, LinkedIn, Instagram is also in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next video.